Welcome to our YouTube channel titled Vinyl City Broadcasting, your transit express to rock and roll trivia. I'm Marie, the host of VCB. Rico is sending me down to the music store to pick up a new edition for our VCB studio. It's something that a lot of groups used when they were performing back in the day. I'll see you back in the studio. Rico, someone just asked me if I was going to do some singing on the subway. I'm glad we got this, Rico. I always worried about the boom mic over my head, that it didn't fall on my signature derby. Well, let me turn it on and we'll test it out. Testing VCB. Testing VCB.
Not quite right, Marie.
Well, let me adjust the settings on this. Okay. Testing VCB. Testing VCB.
That's perfect, Marie. Let's start the show.
Well, before we tell you who our special guest is today, let me give you a hint. They had the biggest hit in rock and roll history, never to make it to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It stayed at the #2 spot for 9 weeks because someone by the name of Elvis came out with a song called All Shook Up. Also, it's the only song that starts off with a primal scream. What group and what song? Did we stump you? It was the Diamonds. The song was Little Darlin'. And we have Gary Owens with us today, who has been with the Diamonds since 1974. That's 44 years. Before we start the interview with Gary, we want to recognize the Diamonds' original member and lead singer from the beginning, Mr. David Somerville. He started singing professionally in 1953 and continued until his death in July 2015. Les Paul was right when he said about David, he has a unique God-given voice, a distillation of Elvis and Bing. The original members were Dave Somerville, lead, Ted Kowalski, tenor, Phil Levitt, baritone, and Bill Reed, bass. They rose to prominence in the 1950s and early 1960s with 16 Billboard hit records. For the VCB interview today, and every show from now on, we picked up this beautiful replica Shure microphone, the same style that many of the doo-woppers used back in the day, and the one that Gary is using in the Billboard poster behind me on the studio wall. Rico, why don't you enlarge the poster so our studio audience can see a close-up? We used this mic when we interviewed Gary at a doo-wop show at Cerritos Center for the Performing Arts back on March 30th of this year called Jukebox Giants. Before we go to the interview, why don't we show you the talent they bring to the stage each and every time they perform? Rico, run the montage of video clips you put together of the Diamonds performing.
Put your hands together and welcome the group who brought you such hits as Silhouettes, The Stroll, and of course the national anthem of rock and roll, Little Darling. Here they are, the Diamonds. We're gonna rock this town, rock it inside out.
The Diamonds will indeed rock your town, starring in Bandstand Boogie, a high-energy, entertainment-packed musical romp through the music featured on America's all-time favorite TV dance show, American Bandstand. From classic rock and roll, including doo-wop classics, some of the greatest ballads of all time. Bandstand Boogie features audience participation.
Are you looking good? I never knew me a better time, and I guess I never will. Well, I'm the type of guy who never settled down where pretty girls are. Where you know that I'm around, they call me the one to ride. They call me the one to ride. I come around, around, around.
It has comedy.
I hope you're all satisfied.
There's my love strolling in the dark.
Choreography.
Splish splash, I was taking a bath.
And great four-part harmony.
All my worries and my fears.
Feel like jumping, baby, won't you join me, please?
It has horn.
You know I don't like
Bandstand Boogie features music by dozens of artists who appeared on American Bandstand during its amazing 37-year television run. And of course, Bandstand Boogie features the national anthem of rock and roll, Little Darling.
Little darling.
Although he never appeared on American Bandstand, on certain special occasions, Bandstand Boogie even features a guest appearance by an entertainer that some consider the greatest of all time.
Do you know who I mean? You mean? Do you know who I mean? You mean the King! Oh my God! Thank you. Thank you very much.
King has left the building.
The bandstand
Bandstand Boogie includes the music that defined American culture from 1952 to 1989. The music performed by the greatest pop icons of the era. Musical artists such as the Beach Boys, the Righteous Brothers, Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, Chuck Berry, Barry Manilow, and many, many more. This is entertainment at its very best. Don't miss the opportunity to book this tremendously successful show.
The Diamonds definitely are at the top of their game and continue to entertain audiences of all ages. You hear those songs and you see yourself dancing to the Stroll on American Bandstand. And some of their accomplishments, honors, and accolades over the years include 3 gold records for Silhouettes, The Stroll, and Little Darlin'. 33 appearances on American Bandstand. Dick Clark must have really liked them. The soundtrack for American Graffiti, Little Darlin'. The soundtrack for Happy Days TV show. The Vocal Group Hall of Fame. The Doo-Wop Hall of Fame. The Canadian Doo-Wop Hall of Fame. And the next time you watch American Graffiti with Kurt, Steve, John, and Lori cruising the strip, it will bring back memories. And listen for Little Darlin' in the movie. Rico, run a little snippet from the movie.
Little darling, oh, 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 you are oh, little darling, oh, 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 well, how are you?
Let me tell you a little more about the Diamonds. They were most noted for interpreting and introducing rhythm and blues vocal group music to the wider pop music audience. Their current members are Sean Suter, Jerry Siggins, Jeff Dolan, and Gary Owens. Their huge hit Little Darlin' continues to sell worldwide and has been dubbed the national anthem of rock and roll. To date, it has sold approximately 20 million copies. Pretty impressive resume, wouldn't you say? Through the years, since the release of Little Darlin', the Diamonds have learned one important lesson. The durability of this classic rock and roll music is as much about the future as it is about the past. As a result, the Diamonds continue to expand their audience to this day, performing in a variety of venues and settings worldwide. These performances include performing with symphony orchestras, in performing arts theaters, major concert halls, on cruise ships, in casinos, at country and state fairs, on tours of England, Ireland, Brazil, Chile, Korea, and Japan for benefit concerts, corporate conventions, and at nightclubs. The Diamonds have said, "We've been pleased to find a growing audience among all age groups." They love songs they can understand, remember, and actually sing the words to, today, tomorrow, or even 20 years from now. Rico, why don't we run the interview that Dan did with Gary that afternoon at the Cerritos Center for the Performing Arts?
It's rolling.
All right. Welcome to everybody out there in VCB land, where we bring you the very best in rock and roll history. We got a Mr. Gary Owen here of the Diamonds. And Gary, thank you, sir. Thank you for sitting down with us.
Absolute pleasure.
We want to hear your history. We want to hear some chat. Tell us about the Diamonds. And we noticed that Rico gave you a poster.
Beautiful job on that.
I agree. I think Rico did a superb job.
Yep, very nice.
You holding a microphone. So tell us about yourself, Gary. How does it all come together for you?
Well, I was always interested in music and started in 5th grade in band and on clarinet and moved to saxophone, and one thing led to another, and in the mid-70s the Diamonds were kind of rebooting themselves. I mean, they had continued through the years, but with the advent of Happy Days and the soundtrack to American Graffiti, Diamonds became real popular again. And so John Felton, who was one of the was the second bass singer in the group, came in '59. He was working in Los Angeles and wanted to get the group back together, and I just happened to be at the right place at the right time, and the next thing I knew, I was singing with the Diamonds. That was 1974.
Wow. The next thing you know,
44 years later, here we are.
And next thing you know, you're traveling all over the world singing Diamonds music.
Yes, we went to England, Ireland, Brazil, Chile, Japan, and this was, after the heyday of the group, but that mid-70s was kind of the rebirth. That's when everybody else got interested, and Japan was crazy about 50s music, so we did really well over there.
And that's the one thing I tell people about rock and roll, because you travel to all these different countries, and all those cultures can relate to your music.
Yeah,
it's not their music, but they can relate to it.
No, that's very true, and we hear a lot of people, particularly people in the service, tell us that when they were over there in the 50s in Germany and these places, that rock and roll was very big, not just to them because they were from America, but in the culture. So, pretty interesting.
So, any history on the song Little Darling, how that came together? Because it looks like it sold 20 million. That's quite a few.
Yeah, I know the story from, I met all the original singers in the group at one time or another and heard the stories from them. But that was an interesting situation. They had done a long recording session in Chicago, I believe it was. And Little Darling was just kind of an afterthought. It had already been recorded by Maurice Williams, and it was on the docket, but they kind of forgot about it. And just as everybody was packing up and leaving, they said, hey, wait, we got one more to do here. And the drummer had actually already left the studio. That's why there's no drums on Little Darlings.
Interesting, thank you.
One of the few hits of rock and roll that doesn't have drums. It's got the castanets and cowbell. And so they recorded it, and then they were out doing some shows, and got a call that they had a hit record from the session, and they thought it was going to be the flip side, which I believe was Faithful and True. And they said, no, it's Little Darling. And they were kind of shocked. And of course, it shot up to number 2. It's one of the biggest hits in rock and roll history, never to make it to number 1, because of some guy named Elvis and a song called All Shook Up, which was on the charts at the same time. Kept the Diamonds on a number 1 spot, I think it was for 9 weeks.
This is beautiful history because it was like an afterthought. Nobody thought
Right.
or saw that it was going to become a big hit.
Yep.
It's like sometimes with movies, they talk to the actors, did you think that movie was going to be a
Yeah.
big hit? No.
Yeah,
But same
true.
thing with rock and roll. Sometimes it's just an afterthought, or somebody says, put together something because we got one more,
Yeah.
we got 5 more minutes for the
Yes.
album. Just, and that song becomes a hit.
Yep. Yeah, it's so true.
So that's interesting to hear that about Little Darling, because to me it's the art of songwriting. You
Well,
almost don't know sometimes.
It's great because it's got every part of rock and roll. It's got the high la 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 la's, and it's got the nonsensical syllables in the background. I make my living going bum to waddy waddy. So,
Yeah.
and of course the bass solo in the middle.
But the song was memorable, and it's still memorable today.
Yeah, when you hear that first opening chord, it's kind of like a primal scream, and everybody knows what's coming.
Yeah. And then different countries are picking up on these songs from the 50s.
We went to Japan, and there was a guy who owned a club there that we went to, who had a hit on Little Darlin' in Japanese. In Japan.
Okay, so a little bit of a change in lyrics, huh?
Yeah, it sounded a lot different, but of course the melody was there, and yeah, he had a hit on Little Darlin' in Japan in Japanese.
So chances are in France and Greece and who knows where,
Could be.
they pick up on the melody and going, we can add, our thoughts to this melody and make a hit out of it, and somebody's collecting royalties on that, of course.
I imagine.
Yeah. So any new projects for you, Gary, and the Diamonds? Where do you guys go from here? And
Yeah, well, we've always tried to keep things kind of fresh by adding new material when we can, and we do have a project that we're excited about right now. We're calling it Jukebox Broadway.
Okay.
And Broadway hits, of course, there's tons of them, but the hits like Jersey Boys and Motown the Musical, those are called jukebox musicals because they're made up of popular songs, and that's the soundtrack for the musical. So we've put together 15 of these jukebox musicals in a show we're calling Jukebox Broadway. Just to name a few, we've got, of course, Jersey Boys, Motown the Musical, Smokey Joe's Cafe, Buddy, the Buddy Holly Story, Beautiful, the Carole King Musical, and on and on. Footloose, Grease. So it's kind of a nice way to, all of these songs are songs that would be familiar to our audience, but we put it in this framework. It's all in medley form, so we do almost, I think it's over 60 songs in a 90-minute show in these medley forms, and people love it. They're of course, everybody loves Jersey Boys, everybody loves Motown, Footloose, Grease, everybody loves Grease. And so that's our new project, and it's got a bunch of video support, real current, high-quality video, quite a few costume changes, and it's designed for performing arts centers and for casinos. And that's it's kind of modified versions of it, but it'll really start rolling out this fall.
Gary, I'm grateful you've come to Cerritos from Reno.
Oh, hey, well, that's what we do. We travel.
Wait, thank you. We look.
Getting here's the hard part.
Well,
when we're here, it's the easy part.
it's a lot easier than Elvis's day.
Yes, that's
with the
true.
Transportation and the
Yep.
lodging and who knows what they had to eat.
Yep.
And probably the payments and whatever, all that good stuff. But no, we're so happy that you've come to Cerritos to perform. I'm looking forward.
Well,
It's music that takes me back to when I was in elementary school, Gary.
you're gonna hear She Say tonight.
Thank you, because I want to hear that song. That song just takes me back to when I was a child. So, Gary, thank you, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Absolute pleasure.
And we'll go back over to Marie at Vinyl City Broadcasting, and thank you for tuning in, friends.
Did you catch those cool highlights? With the advent of shows like Happy Days and movies like American Graffiti, the Diamonds became popular again. The story behind Little Darlin' was so interesting, wasn't it? At the recording studio, the drummer left and they had to improvise. So they added castanets and a cowbell, and the rest is rock and roll history. And that new project, which is a musical review that is coming out in the fall and called Jukebox Broadway. Rico, run a little bit of the video trailer so our audience can get a taste of what is to come. We're all looking forward to that.
Welcome to Jukebox Broadway starring the Diamonds. A jukebox musical uses as its soundtrack popular songs either written or recorded by an artist or group. Jukebox Broadway has taken 15 of Broadway's top jukebox musicals and crafted over 60 songs into a multimedia production that will give your audience a one-of-a-kind entertainment experience.
And I won't quit till I'm a star.
From Beautiful, the Carole King musical,
some fun. You only live once when your day you're done. So let the good times roll. 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 Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak, don't talk back. Come fly with me, come on, let's fly away. Hot punk, cool punk, even if it's all junk, still rock and roll to me. Oh, uptown girl, she's been living in a white world. As long as everyone with hot blood, yeah. And now she's looking for a downtown man. That's what I am. You can dance, you can jive. Ooh, see that girl, watch that scene, digging the dancing queen. And we were dancing. Round, round, get around, I get around, yeah, get around, round, round, I get around, I get around. Well, that'll be the day. Ooh, that'll be the day when I die. She loves you, yeah, she's in love with you, loves you, yeah, and I feel she loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm turning it loose, a footloose, kicked off the Sunday shoes. Please, Louise, pull me off of my knees. Jack, I get back. Come on before we crack. Lose your blues. Everybody got foot loose. Hey, stop in the name of love before you break my heart. Big girls don't cry. Big girls don't cry. Ooh, walk, 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 walk. Ooh, walk like a man. Like a
Wasn't that video well put together? We wish the Diamonds success in their upcoming new endeavor. After the interview, we took a few pictures and shared some personalized gifts with him. Then we all strolled over to the concert hall that evening and enjoyed everyone's performance. Then we strolled back to the Sheraton Lounge where we enjoyed some adult beverages and more association. Thank you, Mr. Owens, for your time in allowing us to interview you. Remember to check out the Diamonds website, www.thediamonds.cc. All the above information, along with Gary's information, will be posted on our last slide. Write it down. If you like our VCB video, please hit subscribe or share when you go to YouTube. I promised Rico I wasn't going to let out with a primal scream before we close the show. So why don't we let the Diamonds do that?
I appreciate that, Marie.